What's up, everybody? This podcast is brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Courtney Diamond. I'm currently listening to Braving the Wilderness by Brené Brown. I'm a huge fan of her books, and you should check out a few others of hers if you get the chance. She tends to talk a lot about vulnerability and shame and how we relate to those feelings in our lives. It sounds like a bummer, but it's actually incredibly interesting. But hey, if that's not your thing, go ahead and grab yourself any other audiobook for free and that 30-day free trial by going to audibletrial.com/Courtney Diamond. It's a wonderful way to support the podcast, so please use it and share it with someone that could use a new book in their life. Now, for this week's podcast, I talked to a guy who moved out here to San Diego from Illinois for a fresh start and managed to turn his personal training career into opening his own gym. We actually recorded this podcast in his gym and had a really great chat. So with that, I hope you enjoy this conversation I had with Keith Diedrich. So nice. When I walked in, I was like, this is a nice little space you created here. It's like a good size.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's why I think I always invite people to come in and see the place because, I don't know, I think there's so much to be said for actually stepping into the space and getting a feel. You know, actually feeling what the energy's like in the place. You
have to be comfortable in a gym.
Yes.
So I feel like a lot of people struggle with is like they're worried about people watching them or just the environment of it.
Yeah. Too. I mean, I'm sure you've worked out in your fair share of gyms, right?
I've worked out in a few.
Okay. Yeah. Where are you working out now?
I have a membership at 24 Hour, but I do most of my working out in my house right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my schedule's just super strange.
Well, no, I remember you mentioned that a while back that you're big on the in-home workouts. So you're like a lot of people that donate to these corporate gyms, you know.
We've got one of those memberships from 24 Hour that has been there so long that I think it's like a stupid amount, like $8.
I've heard of
like,
those.
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
It's like it's stupid cheap.
Yeah,
and so
or you just keep it because
for that one time of the year that I get this wild hair to go over there. Yeah,
exactly. It seems to be when friends want to work out and that's what they have, and then I can join them. But that's pretty rare these days. I used to work at a 24 Hour Fitness, the one in Hillcrest.
Oh yes, yeah.
So that's pretty funny.
I get a lot of people that are coming over and checking my gym out that are either currently working out at 24 Hour Fitness over in Hillcrest, or they've been in there to check the place out, and they turn right around and it's just not a good fit for them. So, I mean, while we're on the subject of the whole corporate gym thing, 24 Hour Fitness, LA Fitness, the way that I describe Prime Fitness Training, my gym, is a complete 180 of an experience of what you would get at one of these big box corporate gyms. And so it's a gym that is very appealing to people who don't want to deal with the ancillary BS that you would get over at a real busy, crowded gym. People that don't want to get high pressure sold, people who, like a clean facility and are not all about people staring at themselves in the mirror and taking selfies. So in a nutshell, I guess it's a good gym for people that are kind of introverted, kind of appealing to all different fitness levels. But I think especially people that just don't like to have distractions.
Yeah, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense in a smaller space like this. I'm very introverted, so this would be the kind of thing that I would need.
Yeah, I think
I default to my house,
Right. No, and by default, I think that's probably my personality type as well. I mean, I can turn on the the social aspect, be chameleon, if you will, in certain settings. But yeah, I think innately a bit more introverted, and so that's largely why the space is the way that it is, because I literally handpicked all the equipment. And, I thought to myself as I was building this gym, okay, Keith, if you were going to work out here, what kind of setting would you want to have? What kind of equipment would you want to have in there? And then I also thought to myself, I do a lot of talking to myself, as you can see. So,
as do I, so no worries there.
We're all a victim of that, right?
Oh, of course.
So I thought, what kind of a setting do I want to train clients in? Because my background is largely personal training. I've been personal training for 12 years now in some capacity. And I'm actually in the process of trying to pull myself away from personal training and not train as many clients simply so that I can focus on growing the business and other, what I like to call newfound creative outlets.
Newfound creative outlets. That sounds mysterious.
I think it's just an important aspect in any person's life. If you don't have newfound creativity, life it's kind of mundane in a lot of ways. And
tends to get a little bit stagnant.
Yeah, it can be boring. So I think it's important to try and keep yourself on your toes in some way, shape, or form. And for me, these days, kind of the way that I'm finding some newfound creativity is in the hunt for a second gym. I would like to open a second location sometime in the next 6 months or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm looking into North Park, South Park. And with this first gym, it's been something that I've thought about doing for a long time, and I knew I was going to do it. I just didn't know where and when it was going to happen. But yeah, 10 years ago, I'm sure I was telling people I'm going to open a gym someday. And sure enough, here I am out in San Diego opening a gym, doing things on my terms and kind of living the life that I wanted to create for myself. And so with regards to the second gym, it'll happen. It's just a matter of where and when. But my prediction is in the next 6 months. So we'll see if I can live up to that.
Yeah, that's great. How long has this one been open?
Coming up on a year, and any day now, it's going to be a full year since I started conducting business. And I remember the day that I first viewed the space with a couple of friends. The place was barren. It was a wreck. The ceiling was falling down. The place was like a cavern. There weren't any lights in here. And my friends and I, we went and grabbed lunch over at Luna Grill down the street. And we're just sitting there chatting and trying to come up with the numbers, right? What kind of numbers am I going to need to make some money? Who wants to open a business and not make money?
Right.
So we did what I like to call the napkin math. So I said to my friends, I'm like, if I can get 40 or 50 members in here, that's going to pretty much cover my overhead. And everything that's generated from personal training, of course, will be profit. And I'd say within the first 4 or 5 months, I was able to hit that 40 to 50 member mark and put me in the black and started making money. And that's pretty quick for new businesses. Usually it takes a couple of years before you start turning a profit.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. And I'm currently at member 138, the gentleman that was here just before you arrived. Makes 138, and I anticipate being able to accommodate another 30 to 40 members or so before I have to actually put a cap on the membership base.
Right, because you don't want it to get too...
No, I don't want it to take away from the setting that I've tried to create, which is a place that you don't have to deal with overcrowding and knuckleheads. So
yeah. That makes sense. That makes total sense. So you're not from here.
I'm not.
Where are you from, and how did you end up here?
Yeah, so I'm from a small town called good old Bourbonnais, Illinois, and it's pronounced Illinois for you folks out here in California who call it Illinois. That's not...
People do that?
People do that.
Really? That's rough. That's rough. I'm surprised.
The S is silent. There's no noise happening in Illinois. So it's a small town that's populated by about 10,000 people, and it's about 45 minutes south of Chicago. So, of course, growing up, I had a nice combination of the small town upbringing as well as a big city right in my backyard, so to speak. I like to think a great way to be raised. At this point in my life, I would not want to return. That's kind of a chapter that I've lived and closed. But certainly from an upbringing standpoint, really grateful to have been raised where I was. San Diego is just a perfect fit for me right now. So I think you live in San Diego and you become a bit of a travel snob. When you go to these other cities, you're able to pick them apart.
Isn't that the weird thing? Because I'm from San Diego, and so it's hard to move. It's hard to leave and go to other places because your city does have a lot of great things, so it gets a little bit tricky. Can you tell the difference between San Diegans and people that are from smaller towns? I
can always tell people that are from California, more specifically Southern California, compared to other parts of the country, like the Midwest or the South or the East. And I think that the whole law of attraction. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there's a really good book called The Secret that the premise of the book is about law of attraction, and you attract what you project. And so the interesting thing about me living out here is my circle of friends, which is kind of like my second family. They're mostly from the Midwest, and so we've seemed to have found one another.
Sure, that makes sense.
However that happens, it just does. And here we are, and I'm coming up on about 5 years that I've lived in San Diego. Best decision of my life, hands down. Moving out here, I've just grown in so many different ways. And as I mentioned, kind of living the dream, as cliche as that sounds, just doing something that I love every single day, and what I consider to be the best city and the best country in the world.
High praise. Did you come out here with a job, or did you just do like the move?
I came out here, no job, no place to stay. I knew one person, and that was more of an acquaintance. I was starting from scratch. Pretty much every major life category that you can think of in a person's life was a big question mark for me. I'd just gotten out of a serious relationship. The first gal that I'd ever fallen in love with, we broke up about a month before I moved here. And my grandfather, who I was super close with, he died about 6 weeks before I moved here. So those were some indicators for me that, okay, Keith, your life, this chapter of your life in Chicago is over. It's time for you to move on. And packed the U-Haul trailer up with my possessions, drove out here, and the rest is kind of history. I started my in-home mobile personal training business from the ground up, and would go to people's homes and train them in their house. And then, of course, training people at parks and the beach. And just through word of mouth was able to grow that way. And had a very loyal following. I mean, to this day, there's people that still train with me that have been with me from the very beginning 5 years ago. So it's going to be tough to pull myself away from them as the business evolves and grows. But I'm going to do my best to continue working with the core group, the loyalists, as I call them, for as long as I can.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. It's that personal relationship that keeps people around, and that word of mouth can be, especially for like small businesses, that's massive.
Yes, exactly. And, I've worked way too hard to build a good reputation for myself in the fitness industry to compromise that by having other trainers work out of my space that I'm not confident in, just to make a few extra bucks to get rent from them each month. So the people that I do have representing Prime are really great trainers.
Oh, that's cool. So you have several other people working out if you're training people?
I do. In addition to myself, I've got 3 other trainers that use the space, and they're all super professional, driven, and they treat it like a career, because personal training is something that only a small percentage of trainers actually treat as a career. A lot of them do it kind of as a second career, or as a second job, or to pick up girls. All those things happen. They really do. I've seen some crazy stuff, but these are guys that this is their sole source of income, and there's a reason for that. You have to be pretty decent at what you do to train a client for weeks on end, months on end, even years on end. Like, you're bringing something pretty good to the table.
Yeah. What do you think are the most important qualities in a trainer?
I think you have to come across as being trustworthy, and you need to show the client that you genuinely have an interest in their well-being. I think, and that's my opinion. The things I bring to the table with my clients, if I were to describe them to someone, would be it's a kind-hearted, non-judgmental approach to helping someone get back into the best shape of their life. I do it, and as I'm sure you can pick up here in this podcast, I'm a pretty soft-spoken, calm, laid-back guy. So I motivate my clients with a lot of positive reinforcement, and I'm certainly not that drill instructor that's in your face screaming and spitting.
Right. Some people think that's what they need in personal trainers, and I've always thought that's a little too much.
I don't quite get it. It's not what would make me tick, but you're absolutely right. There's folks out there that they like that, and I guess more power to them. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that I'm not a great fit for, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting, though, that you say that you could kind of tell that one chapter of your life was closing and it was ready to move on. I think that happens in a lot of people's lives, and instead they kind of put up a lot of resistance to it.
Yeah. Well, I think that, there's a lot of reasons that you could attribute that to, but as human beings, we're creatures of habit. And so oftentimes we do find ourselves, whether it's a job or a relationship with a significant other, we stay in that too long. And it's just, I think, largely because we're comfortable and we know what to expect. I've been victim of it. It's happened to me in the past.
Oh, I've absolutely done it. It's almost like it's not ideal, but because it's just comfortable and you know what the next day is going to be like, you'll settle for a bit.
Yeah. And then there's so many, relationships, for instance, there's so many people out there who are in relationships and at best, they're just mediocre, lukewarm. And there's so many out there that are not in a good relationship, but they continue to stay in them because it's familiar. It's what they know. And they'd much rather stay in something that they know what to expect than roll the dice on something that they don't know what to expect. And in my eyes, that's so sad. It's so unfortunate because, I always view things as kind of a glass half full and always look at all of the positive things that could come from a bold decision as opposed to viewing, oh, what if this bad thing happens or what if that bad thing happens?
It's like we think we can guess what's going to happen, and it's never what you assumed it was going to be.
Golly, man, if things went according to plan, God, life would be a lot simpler, but it would also be, not as exciting. Mm-hmm. The fun in the journey, in my opinion, is it's just the process of getting to where you ultimately want to be. And it's not a clearly paved trail. There's obstacles along the way and turns and roadblocks and speed bumps that you have to get through. But the key is just to be resilient and do not quit. Again, that's kind of a cliche thing, never give up, but it's just so true. If you just adopt an internal culture within yourself that, you promise to yourself, like no matter how bad things get or how challenging things get, I'm just going to keep going. And if you have that frame of mind, I think you can accomplish anything. And I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but I'm here sitting in front of you as a guy that literally came out here with nothing, knowing no one. And, I think I'm on the verge of doing something possibly pretty big with this business model. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's great. And what was your first step when you came out here? And you go, a lot of people will say large things like, I'm going to start a gym, I'm going to start a business, and they never get around to actually making the first steps of making that happen. Mm-hmm. What was your thought process? How did you make your way through that?
It's so true, because there's so many people out in Southern California, especially LA, that'll tell you about all of their dreams and aspirations. And they've got these wild ideas, but as far as taking action and making them happen, I think it's just a very small percentage of people that actually do. There were so many things that I needed to do that I just needed to get started. Like if I concerned myself with all of the little things that I was going to need to do to make things happen, then I would have never wanted to start.
That's where people get sidetracked. They start to get nervous. It's like they're looking at too big of a picture. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're a movie gal, I think, right? Like you appreciate movies. So there's a movie with Matt Damon. It's called The Martian. And at the end of the movie, he survives going to Mars. He's a professor at this time. At the end of the movie, he's talking about his experience. And one of the students in the class, asks him, how did you make it out of Mars alive? And, I'm going to paraphrase this, but basically what he says to them is, you just start, take one thing at a time. And he's a mathematician. So he says you solve one problem and then you solve the next problem. And then before you know it, you solved enough problems to make it out alive. And that's kind of the way that I've approached things out here in San Diego, especially with opening this gym. Like this is totally uncharted territory for me. So I just took things as they came to me and did my best to try and make good decisions. And I didn't have all the answers, but, I at least knew that I could seek out help and advice from people that were kind of experts in a certain area or more in the know than I was. When you can admit, hey, I don't know everything that there is to know about this, that's it's a good thing.
Oh, it's huge because you set your ego aside so that you can actually learn something.
Yes, yeah, and in my opinion, that's a sign of intelligence. And when you can admit I don't know everything and delegate to people who are experts in that area. I mean, that's what personal training is all about. A client has to be able to put their ego to the side and go to the trainer and say, "Hey, listen, I don't know how to lose 30 pounds, and I'm going to put my trust in you to help get me there in a safe and timely manner."
Very, very true. What do you feel like you've learned in this past year, the most important things you've learned being here?
The big takeaway for me has been independence. Like, I did this pretty much all on my own. I didn't have a business partner. I didn't have investors. I literally made every decision myself and collected all of this equipment that you see in the gym pretty much myself, traveling up to LA and picking it up from gyms that were closing down. Definitely did this in a very cost-effective manner. To me, just knowing that, I can do stuff on my own if I really just stick with it. Again, it's really kind of cheesy when I say anything's possible, but the last year has taught me just that really the sky's the limit. And I feel like out here in Southern California, the opportunities are endless. It's just capitalizing on them. Other parts of the country, like where I was raised, small towns, the opportunities are limited. They really are. So if you have a big vision and you want to do really big things, it's going to be much more difficult. Not to say it can't happen in a small town, but you almost need to put yourself in a setting where you're surrounded by other people that are kind of like-minded and want to do big things.
It's very important to keep you motivated.
It can be. Yeah. I mean, for me, my motivation has never been about what everybody else is doing. It's just always been fulfilling my own potential. And I've known that I've had a lot of potential from a really young age, but until moving out here to San Diego, I had never really tapped into any of it because life was comfortable back in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. I had family, I had really good friends, and I had a lot of people that I could turn to help me do things. Sure, it can be good at times, but when you're trying to grow as a man, you almost need to put yourself in a setting that's totally foreign to you. So sure enough, yeah, coming out to San Diego, crazy California, putting myself in a neighborhood that's largely gay. It was all a big 180 for me. So I had to adapt real quick and become more open-minded and resourceful.
Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously we want to be comfortable, but we get so settled into that it feels like a ton of people don't realize their potential, or at least it takes them a lot longer to get to those places, And then aside from that, being from San Diego myself, these big cities, we do feel like we have so many different options. I know a lot of people that feel like they have a lot of interests and I could do anything is kind of that mentality now. Mm. And so sometimes they don't know how to find their focus. Mm. When there's so many things that they feel like they might want to do. Yeah, no,
I'm very fortunate to have been able to found my passion, so to speak, at a really young age. Being 22 years old and having a gym owner come up to me and say, "Hey, have you ever thought about personal training?" From there, it was just I was kind of a natural at it. And
what made him say that to you?
I think just because I was in pretty good shape back then. These days I'm not in quite as good of shape, but try and stay fit, try and stay athletic looking. Otherwise, who's going to go to a gym that's ran by an out of shape gym owner? Yeah. Who's going to train with a trainer that's out of shape? So yeah, try and stay in shape somewhat these days. But yeah, back then I was just in really, really good shape, and the gym owner I think saw that and thought that might be motivation for people. But again, I realize that it takes time for people to find their passion, and it may not happen until they're 50, 60 years old. But fortunately, I found mine at a really young age. And with the way that the business is evolving, it's just enabling me to impact more lives. That's really my goal, is just to help as many people in this world as possible through the medium of fitness.
What about like a favorite client story? Do you have any of those?
Yeah, there's a lot of great clients that have been loyalists of mine for, so long. But truthfully, the coolest story that I have to tell you about is, a guy that is one of my best friends. He's turned out to be, and probably the second client that I started working with. out here 5 years ago, the first year and a half of training this guy, it was a totally different experience than the last 3.5 years, because at about that 1.5 year point, he was diagnosed with cancer. And it's a really rare form of cancer. So he ended up going through, the removal of the cancer tumor and undergoing the chemotherapy and the radiation, and bounced back from that one. He came back and came back strong, like he always does. And we trained again for like another year until the cancer came back. And so this time it was in his lung. And so, he had a lung removed, went through the chemo, the radiation, and then came back from it again. So here we are, timeline for you is probably like a year and a half ago when he and I started working out together again after him fighting cancer for the second time. He's on a trial drug right now that's supposed to keep the cancer at bay. And with it being such a rare form of cancer, they don't know what's going to happen just because there hasn't really been many people who have taken this medication, but he's outlived everyone who's ever taken it before. So, he's a member at the gym, and we still train together once a week. So undoubtedly, he's absolutely the coolest story that I could tell. And he gave me the honor of being the best man in his wedding a couple years ago.
Oh, that's great.
And yeah.
Talk about a good relationship.
Yeah, I've checked a lot of things off the list. I mean, for instance, being the best man, I've never been a best man before. I've never attended a gay marriage, so check that off. And then he got married on the beach, so I was able to check that off. And so just such a cool experience. For me, he's been kind of a mentor as well, just because he's battled this with so much dignity. Just very inspiring, and someone that I look up to, and hope to someday just be half as good of a person as he is, and that'll be a huge win.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So I know that's a long response for you, but I feel like his story is worth telling. I'd love for him to tell it sometime. That might be a subject for another podcast.
No, it's incredible. Everybody's got these crazy stories. If you sit down and talk to people for a certain amount of time, and they can tell you what they've been through.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
that's
how
great.
You get to sit down with these people too, spend all this time with them, and I'm sure you learn a lot from them as well during these sessions where you spend
totally
quality time.
Yeah, you're kind of like a therapist in some ways. You hear it all.
Yeah. That's funny. I can imagine. So what advice would you have for anybody that's trying to start up a small business, or they're trying to get motivated to do something that they really want to do, since yours seems to come kind of innately to you?
Sure. Well, I think that you kind of want to have some clarity with regards to what it is that you want to do. And it helps to have some type of a background of experience in the area that you're looking to do this in. So that's what I would say is first kind of look at what your strengths are. What am I good at? And be honest with yourself. And if you stick to your strengths, even if it's just some weird strength that you have, some strange talent, and you really enjoy it, I think there's a really high probability that in time, you're going to be able to turn that into something that's profitable. Because, with personal training, for instance, there's not a lot of personal trainers out there who have been doing it for 10 years that aren't halfway decent at it, making decent money. So put in the time, make sure it's something that you give a crap about.
That's important, so that you actually want to go to work in the morning.
Yeah, don't just do it because it's a quick fix to make a buck. That's the wrong reason. Yeah, it's going to be pretty short-lived, in my opinion, the success. So with so many things in life, I think that if you do things for the right reason, you're going to go pretty far.
I think you're totally right. Well, where can people find you if they want to meet up with you, see the gym?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of resources out there for Prime Fitness Training. We've got a website, primefitnesstraining.com, and then presence in the social media avenues like Instagram. There's a Facebook page. You can do a search through Yelp and find us. The best thing to do, in my opinion, would be to come to the location itself, which we're located at 126 Washington Street in Hillcrest, right across from Bronx Pizza. I use that as a landmark for people a lot because they've got pretty good pizza over there. And
pizza and gyms. How dare you?
I know it. It's so bad. But hey, life's about moderation, right? You can go to Bronx Pizza after you get in an intense leg workout.
I totally agree.
But yeah, so the cross streets are 3rd and Washington here in San Diego, Hillcrest. Just pop by sometime. You see the doors open, come right in.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Keith.
You're very welcome. Thanks for reaching out.
That's it for this one, you guys. Make sure to follow me on the socials at Courtney Diamond for updates on new podcasts, and head over to CourtneyDiamond.com to check out the blog. Thanks for being here. And if you've enjoyed this time we've shared together, maybe leave a nice rating or comment if you have the chance. I would very much appreciate it. Hope you have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you guys soon.